Bitcoin's going to $100 million. I feel like we're being pulled forward to some sort of destiny that is larger than Bitcoin itself, because Bitcoin is going to be the capital of the world. The world at $100 million of Bitcoin is so vastly different from the world you're encountering today that it would make your fucking head spin. If there is a bull run in this year, it's going to come at the back half of the year, not the beginning of the year. Like, we as Bitcoiners see a 20% move and we laugh at it. It's funny to us. Scott Bessent, who's the new Treasury Secretary, saying things like there's going to be a new Bretton Woods, a global economic reordering, and Bitcoin is a rising store of value. That's the Treasury Secretary is saying that, okay?
Do you think the block size wars are over?
That's an interesting question. I think the first thing, Cedric, that you have to understand is that
what is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Ladies, gentlemen, and rabid degenerate Bitcoiners, for just the second time, we have the man, the myth, the legend, American HODL up in the Bitcoin Matrix house. Dude, how are you?
it's good to be back, brother. For the listeners, they don't know, but I don't keep a schedule, so I like accidentally blew like 2 different podcasts with Cedric, and then I'm just like, oh shit, and I felt so bad. So Cedric is a total mensch, and he doesn't care, but other people would have been super offended.
Well, I've gone through my own, ups and downs with the shows, and I know what it's like to have a life off the show, but as well. And then I saw I think it was Ben Sessions maybe tweeted about you not showing up to a show like a year ago. So it kind of depersonalized it for me, and I just book an extra show the week that you might be on. So I got something in the bag, and it's like a no pressure zone. And I always find.
Yeah, I decided I just am not going to use a calendar, and I'm going to make it everyone else's problem.
That's a nice way to live, man. That's really that's probably a true Bitcoiner. And I find that even if the show gets pushed back for whatever reason, it always ends up being better when it comes together. I was going through some really tough stuff early on in the show 4 years ago, trying to keep the show going, and I had to cancel on Gigi, and it really fucking sucked. And it took about a year to put back together, and I think that's one of my best shows. But it was hurt in the time, but he was the one who was like, you got to focus on what's important, and we'll do it when we can. But one of the reasons I love having you on the show, and really the reason it is a big deal, is because I have a debt of gratitude to you. Going back to 2018, 2019, your appearances on shows is what helped build confidence or conviction, really. Conviction through knowledge, right? But it's really great to hear someone else going through the same thing, and someone who's been further on the journey. And those times kind of remind me now a little bit, in sort of a lame kind of way, because we're at 80K, and the crying now, I think, is a little ironic where we were then at maybe like 3,500 in the trenches of 2019. So kind of what are you thinking? Maybe even looking back on that or reflecting.
I think, the journey gets long and it gets tiresome. On mile 1 of the marathon, you're like, fuck yeah, we're running this marathon, we're doing it. And then you get to mile, 15, and you're like, this kind of sucks a lot. I want to quit. And then you get to mile 22, and you're like, I'm just going to give up. My feet are bleeding. This is awful, So I think Bitcoin is very similar to that. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And in a lot of ways, Bitcoin's like an infinite game where it just never stops. And so I was having this moment myself which is ridiculous, that I'm feeling, fatigued or depressed at, $80,000 of Bitcoin, which is just crazy. But I was, and it's a very human feeling, because I think there's an emotional letdown when you have an expectation and then that expectation is not met. And I don't think a lot of us were anticipating the trade war being like an actual real thing. I think everyone in the market was like, Trump is full of shit. We'll, he's going to go up there and bloviate, but nothing's going to actually come of it. And then it's like, oh no, we're actually in a legit trade war with China right now, seemingly. And neither side looks like they're going to blink on it. The Chinese are like, today just talking about they're ready to go full kinetic if they need to. Which is, I don't know. Do we get to like 500% tariffs on China and then they make a play for Taiwan in the middle of it? Like, who knows what's going to happen? So like, the world is in flux and the markets hate uncertainty. And every time there's uncertainty in the markets, people go to cash. So it's not like the money disappears from the markets. It's just like people get uncertain. They go to cash because they know they're going to have to pay for things in the real world. And then, when the uncertainty clears up, the cash piles back into the market. Price comes from the margin, and stocks and Bitcoin and everything goes higher. I think for me and for a lot of other Bitcoiners, we had this fixed belief that cycle theory is a real thing, and that about 18 months after the halving, you get this sort of blow off top on this bull run, and then you sort of have this massive correction, and then you consolidate and you build back up and you do it all over again. And so we were all anticipating this year being a big bull market year, and it's looking more and more like that's not the case, and that if there is a bull run in this year, it's going to come, or a significant price upwards, it's going to come at the back half of the year, and not the beginning of the year like a lot of people were anticipating. And it might even not even happen this year. It might be next year, it might be the year after. And so people like me who get all excited and go out on podcasts and are like, yeah, I'm thinking $1 million, we could do it this year, Cedric. Like we're all like got egg on our face and we're like, oh shit, it's looking kind of bad. But I think the key is just to remember that, for me, I caught myself thinking, that there was some sort of an end to Bitcoin. Like, oh yeah, we'll get to this level and then I'll feel good and I'll have enough money and I can take care of this and that and I can buy that nice house and I can do that thing and I can, whatever. And then I just realized like this is a lifelong pursuit that I'm engaged in, and I'm 10 years in, and I plan to be here for 40, 50 years if I'm able to live that long. And so it's like, why am I thinking there's some sort of an end date in the middle and then getting depressed about it or whatever? And so if you find yourself at mile, 18 of the marathon, and you still got 8.2 miles to go or whatever, you need to just suck it up and realize like, put one step in front of the other, and it's going to hurt for a while until you get to the end. And like, actually like hodling Bitcoin, when you look backwards in time, is extremely, it's extremely profitable, right? Like it's the best performing asset of the last decade. We, anticipate it being the best performing asset of this decade. You even have buy-in from Wall Street, guys like Larry Finker saying it's going to $800,000 and stuff like that. So, I mean, when you look back on it, it's very obvious. But when you live it forwards, it's just nothing but pain all of the time. And then there's like 11 days of the year where you're feeling pretty good about yourself, But then the rest of the time, you're just like, this sucks. I'm in pain. All my money's in this thing and it's evaporating, or like the price is chopping sideways, or like the price is not responding how I want it to, or it's still coupled to the traditional markets, or, yeah, we got the SBR and we got, the approval from, we got regulatory clarity. The DOJ is not going to be prosecuting people who are doing cutting edge Bitcoin technology anymore. Like that's all great, right? But then the price is like, So yeah, I mean, I think it really just comes down to expectation, and like if you're feeling fatigued, it's because you had the incorrect expectation. And I'm one of them. I'm just like everyone else. I had the incorrect expectation as well, and so I was feeling the fatigue, and I was like, this sucks. Bitcoin's only $80,000. Which is like, when I first bought Bitcoin, it was $200. Now I'm crying that it's at 80,000. I expect to be crying at 8 million too. I'll be like, this is awful, Cedric. We'll be back on the podcast, and at $8 million, I'll be like, this is the worst, man. Who would have known,
Dude, that's how, I mean, like when you texted me or DM'd me that you were tired, I looked at my wife, I was like, I don't know if I should take a knee and cry or just celebrate that this is like a breaking moment. Even he's having a human moment, and it just shows how tough Bitcoin is. But also what you're getting at around expectations, I think, is the amount of speculation you're putting into Bitcoin, and maybe even rent seeking. So, right? Like I think like if you can, some amount of your money in Bitcoin is savings. Like I just got this, I'm going to save and set and forget it. If you go further, you're kind of investing in Bitcoin. Like, hey, I'm really trying to get some alpha and get ahead of my peers, right? Like I'm trying to use this thing to get ahead of my peers, and then like you go really balls deep in. Like, this is speculation, and it's like, yeah, I'm trying to like change my life in 18 months, and this isn't doing it for me. I thought I was getting a mansion this cycle, and I'm just been trying to like, I'm not around as long as you, but I'm trying to think like, hey, this has been good to me. If it's not as good as it was 3 months ago on paper, like at some point it's just money. And I was just trying to look at it like, because I want to go from renting a house to buying a house very soon. And it's like, is it the best time to buy? Like, am I getting as much for my Bitcoin as I was speculating on? You know, and then I just started like, well, you know, whatever I have, and if I have to spend any Bitcoin and put it in this house, which I'm trying to do without doing that, you know, so speculating maybe on some other things, you know, and it's like you're hoping to sell some other things or something, whatever. But, you know, I think that's, but maybe speaking, getting more grounded, maybe you could speak to what the journey has been like for you and maybe your wife and your mother-in-law, and like from her, what Bitcoin has maybe done for her.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, man. So yeah, Bitcoin has changed my whole life. I think like, I don't want to say like Bitcoin like saved me and I would have been a loser without Bitcoin.
You see, you were pretty successful, I think, before Bitcoin.
Listen, the truth is I was going to be successful no matter what with Bitcoin or not, but Bitcoin was able to speed up my plans by quite a bit. And Bitcoin was able to give me meaning and purpose. And it was able to provide a more moral framework for investing and saving that I really aligned with me and my values as a human being. And so those things were just tremendous for Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, I am very thankful to Bitcoin for existing, because it's been a tool that I've been able to use in my life in order to, you know, help others around me, those who are willing to be helped, right? Like I've said this before, but like having the knowledge of Bitcoin 10 years ago was like having a magic wand and going around to everybody and being like, would you like me to wave this over you and make you rich? And everybody being like, that's fucking stupid. Like, no, I don't want you to wave your dumb wand over me. You know, that was how we felt. And so like, I have this friend named John who says like, if I've ever talked to you about Bitcoin, that was my way of saying I love you. And I think a lot of us felt that if we didn't do everything in our power to evangelize Bitcoin, then we were going to have survivor's guilt. We were going to feel bad because we didn't tell other people, hey, the lifeboat is right here. Get on. You can save yourself and your family. You can be more prosperous, etc. And the problem was we're all autistic libertarian types, right? So we came off like unhinged whack jobs, which we are. We're not that. We are that. And so it makes it very hard to listen to somebody when they're like driving around a moped and, you know, their shirt has holes in it and they're wearing, you know, the same pair of pants all week, every single day of the week, right? Like you're just like this, and their hair is like crazy, and you're like, this person is nuts. I can't listen to this. This is not real. This is like a delusional fantasy. And then, you know, the delusional retard turns out to be correct or whatever, and then a lot of people are just kind of bury their head in the sand about it. That said, the people that I was able to help were mainly people that were close to me, like wife, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, people like that. And yeah, I mean, I was able to retire my wife by porting all of her retirement savings into Bitcoin, and then all of you know, I had us on a very aggressive savings plan when we were young in marriage, and or even before we were married. And you know, this is one of the things that other dudes, young dudes especially, come up to me, and they're like, "How do I get my wife on board with Bitcoin?" You know, and I was giving them the same piece of advice, which is just that like you got to be the leader in your household, and you know, you have to really like walk the walk, right? Like you believe in Bitcoin, yeah, but if your wife comes home and you're, you know, high and you're playing video games in your underwear, she's gonna be like, this dude doesn't have a fucking plan. This is bullshit, you know. You gotta walk the walk. Like you gotta start brown bagging your lunch, and you gotta make sacrifices ahead of other people. That's what being a leader is, right? Like showing others the path. And if you do that, then other people will get on board with what you're thinking and what you're doing, even if it is extreme. And for me, in my it was really extreme 10 years ago. It's not as extreme these days. 10 years ago, it was like I was a full-on lunatic, crazy person, and my nice wife was. She took some convincing, but she was accepting ultimately of this extreme financial plan that I had put the family on. And so, yeah, I was able to retire her. And then my mother-in-law was left penniless in a divorce when she was, what, age 64, 65. And so, having a 64, 65-year-old woman who has nothing and is like basically dropped in a shotgun divorce and has no plan for retirement savings or no money, is renting an apartment and lives in, drives like a really old car and, whatever, and she was working at preschool making almost no money, I think like $24,000 a year or something, right? So I basically said, hey, all right, listen, you've been dropped into this situation. Like, here are some routes we can go down. I gave her some options for what she wanted to do. And I presented the most extreme option, which was, give me your money to invest, and I'm going to invest everything into the markets. And because, you don't really want to tell baby boomers that you're investing all their money into fake internet coins. I just call it the market. That's my euphemism for it. I just say it's all going in the market, the Bitcoin market, But to her credit, she chose the most extreme option. And, I just took all of her very meager savings and put them into Bitcoin. And now she has a amount of money in her retirement account that like she's able to retire with, some amount of dignity, where that wasn't going to be the case without Bitcoin. So like Bitcoin is a real life changer in a lot of people's circumstances. And, you as the person who's a Bitcoiner who's probably listening to this podcast, like you can be the change agent for others, but you have to live in a way that makes people believe that you're capable of being the change agent. So like if they see you and you seem crazy and disheveled and chaotic, which a lot of us are, then they're going to have a harder time going along with you, even if you're right,
Yeah, I find that you have to show them on the scoreboard that you've been right for long enough, but by then they might feel so far behind you that they don't want to play the game.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Everybody, we probably all have the same friends where they hit you up and they go, "Hey man, what about XRP? You think XRP is going to go to $100?" And you're like, "No, man, I don't." And they're doing this very simple math where Bitcoin went from 0 to $80,000, and so why can't that happen with XRP, right? And it's like it's basically a lottery ticket, where when you buy a lottery ticket, the Powerball's up to like $1 billion or whatever. You can have this little dream for 2 days or however long it takes them to draw the Powerball, and the dream is, what will I do with $1 billion, right? And so when you buy XRP, you're basically having the same dream, which is like one day each one of these XRPs will be worth $80,000. That's what they're telling themselves. And yeah, they want to catch up to you. They feel embarrassed that they didn't get in on it. When you become successful or you do well in life, you become a mirror to others. And it's not that people don't like you, they don't like the reflection, because your choices reflect back on their choices, and it makes it painful to be around you. Because you remind them of something that they didn't do or could have done or should have done, especially if you're a person who's known them for a while and you started in the same place as they did. Whereas if you meet new people along the path, they won't feel that resentment towards you because your choices don't reflect their choices, So that's a tough thing to go through. And everybody that does find success with Bitcoin will go through some version of that. I don't know any rich person that doesn't have that story. That story seems to be a universal constant, that people are sort of, and they turn you into the asshole or whatever, which really, what really happens is like, I had a buddy say, man, HODL is such an asshole. He wasn't like that in high school. And I was like, I was an even bigger asshole in high school. I'm like so calm and demure compared to how I was when I was 16. Are you kidding me? And I was like, this guy doesn't remember at all. I was like the biggest asshole in the world. And so your faults are going to get magnified, and that's just a part of the journey. And it's important to know that that's coming for you eventually.
Does your mother-in-law know any more about her money, like what market she's really in?
I still just say the market all the time, but like she lives with us, and there's like Bitcoin stuff all over the place. Like in my office, I have like Bitcoin blankets and whatever. So like, I'm sure she's probably put two and two together, but she also like doesn't want to know. It's like one of those things like don't tell me. Like So I only tell her when things are going well. I say, hey, the market's up today. You're doing great. Just to let you know, right? And then we do like a check-in every once in a while, and I'll go, market, it's down a little. Market's down a little when it's down 80%. It's down a little. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It'll come back.
Has she achieved sort of personal escape velocity where she might have just enough where she doesn't really ever have to really worry about it again? Even maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll go down, maybe it'll go up a lot, but is she more settled in sort of the maybe emotional temperament because of a new level of financial sort of comfort at all?
I think it's that she's in the position that a lot of people in America are in, where they didn't have any plans to retire because they knew that they didn't have the financial means to retire because they hadn't done the right things decades earlier. Or maybe they just didn't find themselves in the right circumstances, or they went through a divorce. There's so many different things that can happen. And so her lifestyle is very meager because she didn't anticipate ever having any money. And so she doesn't really need a lot in order to be happy. And so the money is there just as a security blanket. It's not actually for anything. I keep telling her, I'm like, hey, you have like, kind of a lot of money now. Like, you want to spend it on something? You want to go get something? You want to buy a new car? You want to do whatever? And she's just like, no, not really. So I think for her at her age, it's really helpful just to have the security blanket, that is the cushion for whatever happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's like almost like Bitcoin has achieved the status of stablecoin for her in a way, or a
Yeah.
401k, or
Yeah.
like an IRA. And I
She
think
also she also lives with us, and I pay for most of her life expenses. So there's that also.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't have to fret and worry about the future in the way so many people. I have a family friend. She's 80 something years old. My mother's friend. She's at her financial wit's end.
Mm-hmm.
She gets Social Security. She, and it's emotionally, it's she's gotten to a point where she's probably suicidal, or has been, and will be again. And the money's tearing. We have these discussions about the economy, like where are we? What's Trump doing with tariffs? And market crash 10%. Who owns stocks? How many people actually own stocks? You could talk even about Bitcoin going from like 109 to 80,000. I mean, I think I heard you mention it. Why are people freaking out? If you have one Bitcoin, that's like a car.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You have half a Bitcoin, that's a nice used car.
Dude, if you have 10 Bitcoin, you went from being a millionaire to not a millionaire anymore. I mean, that's like a big move.
Right. That's a house for a lot of people. 300 grand, that move. Half a $600,000 house, which for a lot of people is a really nice house. It's a big deal. And then just imagine if what's going on. We mentioned it. Like, imagine how much more tired we would be if we were holding a much different hand of fiat.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, is that first of all, let's not like, I think every Bitcoiner wants to make it seem like they're really tough and zen and like, stoic, and the markets don't affect them and whatever. And that's its own psychological trick. I'm willing to admit that, like, the markets have made me cry. They have made me puke. They have, like, they have made me throw things at the wall. Like, maybe I'm just more emotionally volatile than the average person. But I think the thing is, when you're all in on something that's this volatile, I mean, how many investors in the history of the world, this is the thing that, like, I think people don't quite yet understand. And it's something that we quite don't understand yet either as Bitcoiners, which is how many investors as a group in the history of the world have had to deal with this much volatility and turmoil. I can't think of anybody. I mean, the tech guys in the 90s had like one significant drawdown. Bezos lost like 93% of his net worth or something like that. So that's significant. That's big. I've been through 3 of those. I have friends that have been through 4 or 5 of those, and I think that it's conditioning us to be this, like, we're becoming this group of extremely battle-hardened individuals and a community that's extremely battle-hardened in a way that, like, we don't flinch. Look at the market turmoil that's going on right now. People are down on their retirement accounts by the order of like 20%, and people start to panic. They're freaking out. 20% is a huge move for them, because it's like, if you had $1 million, you now have $200,000 less, and that's a very meaningful amount of money. we as Bitcoiners see a 20% move and we laugh at it. It's funny to us. So in a way, you have these like Spartans, these like, you know, financial investing Spartans who are like, you know, it's like all of the Assyrians are like scared to go to war with the Persians, and we're like waiting for our beautiful death. We're like, come on, give it to me. Like, find me a worthy adversary. You know what I mean? Like, we laugh in the face of pain or whatever. And that's a weird thing. It's a weird phenomenon. And what I start to think to myself is like, where does it go from here? What can we do together as individuals and as a collective with our Bitcoin capital, with our Bitcoin wealth? Because we are the Bitcoin capital. If you have Bitcoin, you are the capital allocator of the future, right? And so what types of technologies, what types of social and cultural phenomenons, what types of politics, what types of things can you invest in that are going to be hard to bring into the world and are going to require a lot of, you know, a lot of stoicism, a lot of resolve, like an ideological, you know, fervor, all the things that Bitcoiners are good at, all the things that we've learned over time. Like, we've been in this cocoon of, you know, volatility, if you've been a long-term hodler, that I think is hardening you as an individual in all the right ways and making you ready for the journey that comes. Or at least that's how I see it. I feel like we're being pulled forward to some sort of destiny that is larger than Bitcoin itself, because Bitcoin is going to be the capital of the world. And if you have a bunch of hardened psychopaths who have the, you know, control of the capital of the world, and we all sort of share like a similar value set, belief system. You know, we have a lot of buy-in with each other. We have trusted relationships with each other built up over the years. We've watched how each other have interacted through extreme, you know, extremists. Like, how does somebody react when the market goes down 85%? That tells you a lot about their character. And certainly, like, we've lost friends along the way. Rest in peace, Bitcoin Tina. You know, who can't deal with the emotional volatility of all. And I totally understand that, because it's so fucking hard. It's so hard. But this is a war of attrition. And who are the psychopaths that are left over? What do they believe? What do they want to see happen in the world? Where are they going to allocate their capital? And another thing, too, is I'm addicted. Let me just be straight up blunt about it. I'm addicted to the dopamine. I fucking love the dopamine. I'm not going back to make fucking 7% a year. I don't even give a shit. Like, dude, I have enough money right now where, like, that would provide me a great lifestyle. 7% on whatever I have is like, I could be buying all the stupid shit and going to all this fucking Ibiza and whatever stupid shit rich people do. I don't give a fuck about that. I don't care about that at all. I love the dopamine. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for the volatility. I love the volatility. Give me the next hit of volatility. I want more of it. I love having the resolve. I love putting myself into the fucking chaos. I want to go from the frying pan to the fire. Like, let's, you know what I mean? Like, what can we do as a group, as a collective, as individuals that is going to, you know, get humanity to like Kardashev type 2, that is going to fix some of the social problems we have, that is going to fix some of the political systems and the economic problems we have? What can we do to affect like ecology? What can we do to affect culture? What can we do to, I mean, there's so many things for Bitcoiners to possibly get interested and invest in. And I think we're going to all be able to, you know, in a like volleyball sense, like bump, set, spike the ball to each other, which is like, I got this thing, you got this thing. We all know each other. We're all capital allocators. I did this talk at BitBlock Boom a couple of years ago, which is like called the Bitcoin Mafia. And it's based on the PayPal Mafia. And that's who I think we're becoming. I think we're becoming this like mafia, air quotes, of capital allocators who are, you know, able to bring each other ideas, sort of have this group buy-in, go the distance, create the next generation of hodlers, because Bitcoiners have strong family values as well. And Bitcoin is this intergenerational project by default. And so it's like, we are just the, I don't want to say like disciples of Bitcoin, but like we are. I mean, like, it's like we have been given this immense responsibility, and it's important how we think and feel and act, and we're being conditioned along the way in order to get there. You know, so if you go the distance with Bitcoin, you are going to be like, okay, here's the thing. It's like everybody makes this mistake when they think about Bitcoin. and they think,
Hey Bitcoiners, I'm heading to Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas from May 27 to May 29th, and you need to be there. This isn't just another conference, it's the ultimate Bitcoin party. Grab your ticket now using promo code MATRIX or at the link in the description. See you in Vegas, freaks. Let's make this one legendary.
Bitcoin's going to $100 million, right? And that's true, in my opinion. That's true. And they think to themselves, the world is going to be much the same, but just with me being very rich. That's not true. That part's bullshit. The world at $100 million of Bitcoin is so vastly different from the world you're encountering today that it would make your fucking head spin. Okay. And by hodling, my like hypothesis here is that by hodling, you're going to be able to meet that new world on an equal footing, on a strong footing, because hodling is going to condition you for the world that's going to appear at $100 million of Bitcoin.
I agree with everything you said. I just talked to Jeff Booth. I mean, you could just take the simple 900 trillion divided by 21 million. I think get you a net present expected value or implied purchasing value of 43 million per coin. I think you're both bearish a bit, but you know, I do wonder a lot about like I loved your talk at BitBlock Boom, Bitcoin Mafia, and I think about this a lot because like we are psychopaths in a lot of ways, and you know, and we are being conditioned, and I wonder how much of the Bitcoin ethos is being lost in transmission during this particular cycle, as government rolls out for stable coins and ETF suck up coins, because I think a big part of the Bitcoin Mafia is actually self custody. And, you know, I think that, you know, I wonder how much of the Bitcoin Mafia is really a first generation and only generation opportunity. And I say that in the sense that, like, you could look at, like, say, Kurt Cobain. He had an ethos, maybe. He didn't want his, like, music in a Hyundai commercial. But Courtney Love sold that shit for $50 million, which is life-changing money for her and Francis. But, like, that ain't nothing. And then they put the songs in Kia and Hyundai commercials. And the ethos is gone, or what he had hoped would be the ethos or how it would be used, right? And like, what if our kids or our kids' kids didn't see the hodling maybe, or they do want to sell the coins to the ETF or to the government's reserve so they can have less volatility and go to Ibiza. You know, what do you think about that?
Dude, it's first of all, it's so funny that you bring up like the economical politics of grunge music, because I was introducing my daughters to grunge for the very first time today, and I was like, they were like, "What's this band?" I was like, "Oh, this is the Smashing Pumpkins," you know, and they were like, "If I had a band, I would name it the Donut Holes," and I was like, "That's adorable. Have fun at preschool." But we were listening to Nirvana in the car today. I was actually thinking about Kurt Cobain earlier, so it's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, listen, self-custody gets you a seat at the table. Okay. Let's say you're all in MSTR and you've like laddered out your call options or whatever, and you know, you've done it in a smart way. I think probably you will make money and you will get rich and you will do well, but you're not going to have a seat at the table unless you take that money and port it into, you know, raw Bitcoin, on-chain Bitcoin. And then you'll be able to buy yourself a seat at the table. There's like, you know, first-class citizen, second-class citizen, third-class citizen in Bitcoin terms. And it's like, if you're not running a node and verifying for yourself, and if you're not taking self-custody and you're not taking ownership, then there's always going to be this proxy between you and your Bitcoin-denominated value. And like, I'm an MSTR shareholder. I believe in MSTR, and I think MSTR will do good in fiat terms. But I also think there's a non-zero chance it gets straight up fucking nationalized overnight. You know, and if you understand the underlying economics and game theory behind Bitcoin, there's nothing that precludes that from happening, right? And so I don't worry about that with the portion of Bitcoin that I have that's in, you know, self-custody, right? I have other concerns for that portion. But I think, yeah, you're right that the ethos is shifting a bit. But the interesting thing here is that, you know, Bitcoin's a capital network. It's not a network in the Metcalfe sense, right? So it's like each additional person that comes to Bitcoin is fighting for a marginal amount of Bitcoin. So basically everybody after like 2020 is fighting over like the last 2 million Bitcoin or something. And one of the genius parts of Satoshi's supply issuance curve, I had heard it like criticized 10 years ago in the early days as it being too fast. And over time, it grew on me why it was genius for it to be so fast. And it's that it put the money in the hands of the ideologically insane, right? And also, a lot of the money changed hands a lot of times, and a lot of it was lost and undervalued, which taught people the appropriate value of it. And so, yeah, like, there's going to be a large amount of money coming from, mainly retail people who are coming in over the next couple decades who are going to be largely piling into, I would think, ETFs and MSTR and derivative products and things of that nature. And I don't blame them, because I think that I might be doing the exact same thing in order to, like, air quotes, catch up if I was in their position. But I do think there's a fundamental difference between people who hold wealth on chain and people who do not. So if you hold wealth on chain, you are a first-class citizen. It literally, listen, think about it like this. The Bitcoin strategic reserve just got put in, right? And they're figuring out how to do it now. And they're probably going to use a custody provider like Coinbase for or Fidelity maybe, for the American Bitcoin, but not forever. And there's already discussion and talk about how the United States of America should secure its Bitcoin. And it's not some fancy esoteric, thing that MIT has cooked up in a lab somewhere for the NSA to go and implement. No, it's going to be the types of technologies that you as a Bitcoiner have access to today, which that's a mind blower, right? That means this is back to like when Murad said that Bitcoin was digital nuclear monetary weapons, or like some of the things Jason Lowery says. If you are, as an individual, are operating with the same tools and technology, these, just to use it as an analogy, like these digital nuclear monetary weapons, right? These powerful tools of encryption, then it puts you on the same footing as nation states. When they arrested one of the BitMEX founders on American soil, they thought they had it wrapped up and that they were going to be able to, basically just take the BitMEX hoard and it was going to be theirs, and that was the end of the prosecution, and it would be, we're done here. But it was secured by a multisig. So they got that guy, yeah, but they got one key. And then they had to negotiate with Arthur. And Arthur was like, I'll show up here at this time, and if you don't want it, then I won't show up. And so he had this, because he was an encryption powered individual who had, the tools, these insanely powerful encryption tools at his disposal, he was able to have a full-on negotiation with the United States government. That's crazy. So if you're a first-class Bitcoin citizen, it puts you on the same footing as nation states, right? And that's the reason to do it, is if you want to play the game at the highest level.
I mean, the more you talk to Mark, there's no way, because when they unleashed Bitcoin as a SBR, strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's a national reserve asset. That literally means to me, like, citizens cannot hold this. It's nuclear technology in a citizen's hands, and you should not be holding that, young man. Like, we're the buyer of last resort. We'll give you $1 million, $2 million. Tell the number that you want. It's because we can print it. You can't have that thing.
Yeah, so I think that's a real danger that we're coming in the world we're going to inhabit. I think that's a real danger. I think there's going to be a real power struggle between old elites and new elites, old power structures and new power structures, and sovereign individuals are going to be persecuted to some degree. Well, I think everybody can see that coming. I think the writing's on the wall. Bitcoiners have been saying that for years and years, and they're right. And I think the nature of the conflict shakes out sort of like this. Or here's how I would do it if I was the United States government, is I would put in I wouldn't make self-custody illegal, but I would put in a bunch of onerous reporting requirements that were very hard to comply with. And I would put the onus on people that want to do self-custody. And so I would try and dox everybody, right? I would make you, like, show me where it's at, and then report on it, on a quarterly basis, and do all this extra work, etc. And that's the stick. And if you don't comply with these rules and regs, you're going to get fucked by the IRS or whomever, right? And that's the stick. And then the carrot is, hey, if you put your money over in the ETFs with BlackRock or with Fidelity, then you're going to be able to, we're going to do like-kind treatment soon, which means you can put your money with Fidelity. You can have no capital gains tax when you do that, right? Because it's going to be a like-kind redemption or creation. So you're gonna do this like kind creation. You're going to have no cap gains, and then you're going to be able to margin against your Bitcoin, and you're going to be able to buy your mansion, buy your Ferrari, go on that vacation, get your wife the vacation home, whatever it is. And that is so alluring to the average person, especially if you're a Bitcoiner who, has been listening to Michael Saylor and you want to run a buy, borrow, die strategy in your own life. Boom, you're able to do it now. Right. And so on the one hand over here, you got Elizabeth Warren and whoever else breathing down your neck with onerous reporting requirements. Oh, you dirty, bad Bitcoiners. You're doing all this secret illicit activity on chain, whatever. And then on the other hand over here, you're like, hey, we got nice, friendly Wall Street ready to give you fucking access to credit so that you can go out and enjoy your life, make hodling a little easier, And that carrot stick combination is, going to be, I think, very effective for the government. And the only people left standing on the, full self-sovereign side of the aisle will be absolute ideological crazy people. But those ideological crazy people will be in a position of power. They're going to be able to negotiate in a way that people who gave up control of their keys are not. And so that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're going to try to lure in, I think, as many keys as they can. And yeah, they'll say, if you sell your own Bitcoin, raw Bitcoin on chain, that we'll tax that an extra 25%. But if you like kind into the ETF and you sell it, no capital gains on both sides. And it's kind of almost like W-2 versus 1099. It's like if you have the ETF, you can get the mortgage, you can go get the boat. But if you have your own Bitcoin, like you can't get a mortgage maybe, and maybe you can't do other things. And so it's a carrot and the stick there too. I totally get what you're seeing. But I mean, do you get like fourth turning vibes here then? It feels like we're at war with China, or maybe that's like a stupid thing. I mean, we've been at war with China.
The Chinese are basically, they're saber rattling in a way that lets you know, like, they're willing to go to kinetic warfare. Now, what does kinetic warfare look between two nuclear powers? It probably looks like a naval conflict in the South Chinese Sea over Taiwan, right? So that's on the table. There's like, I wouldn't say there's a large chance of it happening, but I don't know, 10% chance, 15% chance that happens. Pretty nuts, actually. And then, in terms of fourth turning vibes, I think that you could describe the fourth turning as just a historical blind spot. Like, maybe tariffs are a historical blind spot. I don't know. I don't know a lot about tariffs. I don't think anyone does, because we haven't lived through them. So like, we have some historical data on tariffs and we can look back and you can draw analogies to this time period, but like nobody alive really has good experience with, these broad scale tariffs. Right. And, I think the country is also going through an identity crisis. What does America want to be? Does America want to be nationalist? Does it want to be globalist? Does it want to be open? Does it want to be closed? Does it want to be the world police? Does it want to be isolationist? We don't really know. It's open-ended at this point in time, and we're having a sort of conversation about that. Bitcoin benefits from chaos and uncertainty and global instability, right? So like, these things are positive for Bitcoin, but it goes back to the thing I said about, the world at $100 million Bitcoin is it's a lot different than the world at $80,000 Bitcoin. And there's we're living through history, man. We all believed for some stupid reason that we weren't living through history anymore. And it's like, no, we're in it. This is it. I mean, we just keep going from calamity to calamity. Like, I don't know why we ever allowed ourselves to believe that history was over. That seems like such a crazy societal delusion. It's like, no, we're in it. You're in it. And there's going to be a million chaotic events between here and there. Yeah. So if you want to call it the fourth turning, sure. If you want to call it just general chaos, sure. If you want to say it's all Trump's fault, sure. If you want to say it's the fault of wokeness, sure. Whatever. It's all happening all at once, everywhere, all the time,
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so of two minds here. Like, is this 2017 vibes where we go from like 1,000 to 17,000, 18,000 in a period of 9-10 months, or is this more like, I want to game out what you think are the worst case scenarios? Because I also see like the worser it gets, And if things are somewhat correlated, things get bad for every risk on asset and things, you have all this sort of depression scenarios. But I still think somewhat in the shorter to medium term, the worse it gets, at some point, Bitcoin busts out and breaks free and just really stands out. Like that there's this major inflection point. Like in a lot of ways, I saw a lot of people just with this last market dump and rally. I was like, do you guys feel how political your money is yet? That's one of the reasons I don't mind holding Bitcoin, because I know that maybe political things affect Bitcoin, but it's not in an intrinsic way, in more in a human, emotional, irrational way. And it's like, oh, I'm glad that happens to the Bitcoin market, but at least I don't have a big hand in this political thing. I'm not saying I have some micro strategy in my 401ks that's grown nicely because of what Michael Saylor's done over there. But like, so I am impacted somewhat. I'm not saying but like I try to just disconnect from that emotionally, because I'm like, I have as little as hand in that as possible on purpose. And I'm hoping these things really speak out to people like, hey, I hate Trump. Well, then don't let your money be subjected to him. I love Trump. Well, then put all your money in the market. Like, like when are you going to realize that like your money is going to react to politicians and what they do to the price of money, and when has Bitcoin become the clear standout? And really, I'd love for retail to benefit the most, the middle class, but like once ultra high net worth individuals, huge corporations and nation states are like publicly declare like this is something that we are going to go into hard because everything else is stupid and fake. I would think that the price just goes bonkers.
I mean, dude, you have Scott Bessent, who's the new Treasury Secretary, saying things like,
your mission, build the blockchain, stack sats, and resist surveillance. You'll need strategy, stealth, and a little luck. Welcome to Block Hunters.
Built by Bitcoiners, backed by the community. Block Hunters learn Bitcoin by playing.
We played it at family night and everyone loved it. Finally, a game that gets Bitcoin.
Ready to orange pill the fun way? Head to blockhunters.com and use the code BTC Matrix for 10% off your order.
there's going to be a new Bretton Woods, a global economic reordering, and Bitcoin is a rising store of value. That's the Treasury Secretary is saying that, okay? That's a crazy world that we're living in. I still am, I find it surreal from somebody who's been here for a long time that, like, you know, those type of people would just laugh at us, and now they're saying the same things I was saying 10 years ago, right? So it's very surreal, and I think if you can't see where it's headed, then probably you're just not paying attention at this point. And yeah, I mean, it's tough for middle class people or regular people or people, you know, and not because it's their fault, because it's like they don't have time. They don't have time. You know, like, it's hard, man. You got to wake up and you got to get your kids to school and you got to fucking make your boss happy, and there's so much shit to do in life. You got to keep your marriage good. You got to keep yourself in shape. You got to keep up with your friends and family. Like, there's so much stuff. And I don't blame them for not knowing how the fucking money works. It's confusing. And they use all these big words that make you feel stupid. And, like, we had to go and learn about this on our own. And, like, most of the people I've met who are in Bitcoin are people who had an abundance of time on their hand so that they could look into Bitcoin. Like, I've met people that are UPS drivers who are super into Bitcoin because they can listen to podcasts while they fucking drive around in the truck, right? And that's awesome. And I'm glad that they're here. But not everybody has that same abundance of time, and their mind is not free to think all day long. And it takes a long time to, like, come to some of these conclusions, you know? So I would like to help. I've been trying to help people for 10 years figure it out. And I've tried every tactic you could possibly try. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm here. If you want to ask me questions about Bitcoin, I'm here. And that's it. You all know I'm the Bitcoin crazy guy. I'm not gonna bother you at Thanksgiving dinner anymore. I'm not gonna bring it up when the football game's on. You know where to find me if you need me.
Well, I mean, we came to Bitcoin, I think, in very different ways. I came with, a young family, wife, and kids in tow, with a corporate fiat soul-sucking job, but based in accounting and finance, recognizing, like, I couldn't sell my soul to create the value I wanted to in fiat land. So I was just trying to get what I could out of it, which afforded me some time, maybe at my spreadsheet desk jockey job, to listen to pods, right? And I was looking for signal, and Bitcoin was became a simple A/B test. I mean, if you have $65,000 in your 401k and that's everything you have, or 200,000 or 2 million, whatever it is, and you start realizing like I'm just not getting ahead, and I don't have this entrepreneurial pursuit yet. And Bitcoin, in a lot of ways, was an entrepreneurial pursuit for someone like myself. Just stacking sats was like building inventory that will appreciate. And I can save in this thing and be grounded in it, maybe invest and speculate in it, learn about it, and no one can kind of interfere with the bet. And everything in life is a bet, and started realizing like, coming from a Keynesian American finance university background of diversification, like, whoa, wait, start. Like I'm supermarket shop, like terribly shopping every week in my 401k. Like a lot of people don't realize like they're buying a lot of shit every week anyway. And they don't know what it is. And do you have any conviction in it? Is this going to be your anchor if shit hits the fan? Do you have anything in life you can latch on to, believe in? Financially, I mean, I could believe in my wife and my kids, and we'll go homeless together and we'll be okay. But like, well, what about outside of that? And I think Michael Saylor talked, I mean, like so many people want to go through life not thinking that economics count or matter. They're above money. Money's evil, bro. And it's like money's half the game of life. And if you fail at half the game of life, you fail.
Well, this is a question that always comes up for me anytime I'm feeling, let's say I'm feeling bad about the Bitcoin price, or I'm thinking I should take some off the table because the Bitcoin price is very high. I just think, into what? What am I reallocating into? I'm going to reallocate.
And for how long?
Right. I'm going to reallocate in dollars, which inflate away to nothing. I'm going to reallocate into the S&P 500, which doesn't perform as well as Bitcoin. I'm going to allocate into gold, which doesn't perform as well as Bitcoin. I'm going to allocate into real estate, which doesn't perform as well as Bitcoin. So like, what am I doing? I'm looking for a way to soothe emotional volatility. And I'm trying to do it by taking things from uncertainly optimistic to making them certainly pessimistic, because I now know how much money I'm going to make, but it's going to be a less amount of money, right? And so then I just come to this point where I just go, okay, well, you just need to stop being a bitch, deal with the emotional uncertainty within yourself, because this is a you problem,
And play the hand when you want to play it. So meaning like, I think of it as like, if you want to buy a house with the money you have. And if it goes up or down a little bit, like buy the house still. If you want to go on vacation, these things. And if you want to not do those things to save up later, then do that. But it's just money at the end of the day. And you can't live in perpetuity for tomorrow, even though it is very helpful to make some good decisions for tomorrow. Maybe thinking about that, like, can you talk about like the hardest, toughest bear market buy you ever did?
Oh yeah. Let me think about that.
I could cue you up if you want.
I know. Well, I have a couple of them, so I'm trying to pick the best one.
All right, you go first, and if it's not the same one, I'll tip you off.
Yeah. So in 2015, I was I came at the bottom of the bear market, but I was fresh faced and new, so I was just like, "Hey guys, I'm buying Bitcoin." And people on the forums were like, why don't you kill yourself? Shut the fuck up. I was like, okay, all right, good talk. I'll see you later. And then in 2020, I was out of money. So I was just all in. And I just had to take that deval on the face. There was nothing I could do about it, I thought about mortgaging my home to buy more Bitcoin. And I was gonna, but my wife really, really did not like that idea. And I was like, you know what? I mean, I don't need to, fuck it. I'll just not do it. I should have done it though. So in 2018, it was, that was probably the hardest bear market buy. And I'd been saving up money the whole year. I had just had a new daughter. So my first child was born. My newborn child was on my chest, literally in the hospital. I was doing like kangaroo care, if you know what that is, if you're a parent. It's where they put the baby on your skin-to-skin contact. It's good for the emotional health of the baby. And so my wife was sleeping. My infant daughter is on my chest. And I have a large amount of money I've saved up over the course of about 2 years that I'm ready to deploy. And Bitcoin has gone from 6,600, where I had already deployed half, by the way, to down to 3,200. So I was down 50% on what I had already deployed. And I just thought everyone on Twitter was saying it was going to go to 800, 1,000. And I was just like, fuck it. And I just did it. And then I had to give my daughter back to my wife because I was having so much emotionality surrounding it. And I went outside and just walked around the block thinking I had ruined everyone's life, that I had just like ruined my daughter's future, that I had ruined the family's life, that I had wasted the last few years of my savings and money and effort, and that I was an idiot. I was probably going to lose half again. And then by the end of the walk, I had calmed myself down and I was not thinking that anymore. But, the point of that story is the best buys of your life are going to feel like total shit. They feel horrible. Like the other day, I have a small position of MSTU, and MSTU is levered MSTR, by the way. Don't do it. It's horrible. And so I bought some MSTU. I made a bad buy on that. I bought some near the top, and then I doubled down on it when it fell like half, and then I doubled down on it again, and then I was like, man, I'm getting fucking clobbered here. And then literally not yesterday, the day before yesterday, it had gone down like horrifically, and I remember thinking, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy some more. And when I did it, I felt like I had a visual of myself throwing money down a hole and just being like, goodbye, like it's gone. And then literally the next day it went up 50%, So like the best buys of your life will feel so bad. If you make a buy on Bitcoin and you think to yourself, I'm a genius, let's pop some champagne, this is all going to work out, Bitcoin's going to 100 million. Like, yeah, you're right. Like eventually it will go to 100 million, but first it will probably go down 50% because you had the hubris to think it was going to all work out,
Yeah, man, for sure. I'd love for you to maybe explain what is current thingism. But before that, I mean, I do around when the time you made that buy, I remember Bitcoin, I was like probably about like, I don't know, 12:30 at night or 2 o'clock in the morning, way past my bedtime to get up from my stupid job. And I'm looking at the price. It went from like 3,000 to 4,000 in like an hour. And it was just like sort of a wake up moment. And it really helps you start thinking about like whatever you could afford to put in, even if it's 3,000. Well, you just lost 33% of what you could buy, and and on and on and on. So and I think what really kind of gets in a lot of people's ways is current thingism.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So can you maybe explain a little bit about it, or kind of how it grabs people?
Well, I would say that I often think about, maybe this is like too esoteric for you, but I often think about like there's this thing in Buddhism where the Buddha is describing how basically fear talks to you, and fear gets really close to your face and then convinces you that everything it's saying is real, and that all it takes for you to step out of fear is to take a step back and realize that like fear is not real, basically, like that everything it's telling you is false. And I think especially in like our dopamine addicted social media economy, like we just get so sucked into whatever's going on right now, and we just think like this is what's happening, this is what's always gonna, like, dude, the tariffs are a perfect example. Like everybody was freaking out, doom and gloom, panic, blah blah blah, and then Trump's like 90-day pause, and everybody's like, to the moon, fuck it, tariffs are off, we're going back, whatever. And the schizophrenia, the bipolar nature of the market is because we're all these goldfish who have these 3-second memories now, and we're like addicted to like whatever is right in front of us, and if it's telling us to be very scared, we're very scared. If it's telling us to be very happy, we're very happy. And yeah, man, it's like a sickness. Everybody should just turn off their phone and just go outside and just touch grass. I'm the biggest defender of anybody. I fucking get sucked into the latest thing all the time.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Sometimes I try not to, but we got into the show and I introduced you as the man, the myth, and the legend, and you are in the Bitcoin Twitter space, and I have a debt of gratitude. But do you like being lionized?
No, no, because if anybody's giving you If anybody's building you up, it's just the precursor to them tearing you down. So it's like I don't like it. I literally am just a dude. I think people just vibe with me because I'm kind of like this. I have this id of where I can just kind of feel this sort of communal sense of what's going on at the moment or whatever. So that's like my thing I can do is I can just be like, yeah, I put my finger on the pulse and like, here's kind of what's going on or whatever. And then people relate to it because it's how they're feeling, but without saying it out loud. But no, that's the weird thing about Bitcoin too, man. Is like, I'm literally just some idiot who stumbled in here and bought Bitcoin with blackjack winnings. And then like suddenly we're like leading a fucking movement or something. Like, and we're like, how does, it's fucking retarded. It's like, why are guys like me educating people who are then later educating the Treasury Secretary on this topic? Like that doesn't, listen, I went to state school and I dropped out of state school. Okay. I'm not from like an elite institution. Like I'm just one of the run of the mill idiots. I went to summer school during high school. You know what I mean? Like, nobody should be asking my opinion about anything.
You know, it's funny. I've been very influenced by you, Marty Bent, Peter McCormack. You know, different people. Peter and Marty more on the podcasting side, obviously. But you know, you put your own thing into the blender and it comes out differently, right? No matter whoever you've been influenced by. What do you think of Gladiator?
Oh, the young.
Not that he's been influenced by you or anything, but I think he reminds me a bit of you.
I like Gladiator. Gladiator's another guy who's like pure id, you know, like he's just like he's like a young man just tilting at windmills. You know what I mean? It's like it's very entertaining to me to watch that guy. But I can see why a lot of people are like, I'm fucking sick of seeing this dude talk about God candles every day.
Well, I love the kid. I think he's super smart. I think he's very savvy online. I think that the predicting of God candles every day gets a little like, dude, it's counteractive in terms of putting the mojo into the universe. You were more like, it was more like, dude, this thing's going to be worth a lot in the future. I don't know when, you know, and he's like literally predicting every day tomorrow. Like, you're going to be eventually right.
One day he's going to be right. Yeah, exactly.
But it also gets weird when people talk about God candles. I think the whole thing is like out of whack because I think the term, and it probably predates my time, and I wonder how long it takes to be an OG. It takes 5 years to be a New Yorker. That's where I'm from. But like, you know.
Being an OG is like being in love. Nobody can tell you are. You just know. You just
right.
know. Yeah.
Right. But like, oh man, I forgot I was going with that. But like.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, but like, you know.
God candle terminology.
Yeah, so God, you know, it's like, $10,000 candle when Bitcoin's worth 10,000, that's a God candle, right? You doubled your stack in fiat terms. That's like, but like at 100K, a $10,000 candle to me is not a God candle, right? It's like less of, or you could say, right? Or at 900K, $10,000 candle is not a God candle, right? And, I think if you are at 109K and you go down to 85K and you have a $10,000 K, whether you want to call that a God candle or not, you're below the all-time high. So it's not that, so predicting it every day and I think it's like backfiring, but I think he's great. I think you guys, I think you guys have connected.
The God candle thing here is interesting because I think there are actually two camps within Bitcoin culture who believe different things. So there's what I would call the power law guys, right? Broad. I'm using that as a broad category. And to me, a power law guy is just a person who believes this, Bitcoin's going to have this sort of slow, steady upward ascent to where it's going, right? And then there are people that believe more in a phase transition, which is sort of more the camp I'm in. And that would be more, or you could call it hyper Bitcoinization. And what that is basically that there's this inflection point out there in the distance that is unknowable to us currently from where we sit today. And that inflection point would be something like the freezing point. The analogy would be like the freezing point of water. And like, we know what the freezing point of water is, but we don't know what the phase transition, inflection point is for Bitcoin. But it's a moment where Bitcoin goes from being the Bitcoin we know today to the, frozen state Bitcoin. Like it transmorphizes states. And suddenly it's a different thing. And that thing is, it goes from Veblen good commodity, curiosity to reserve asset, reserve currency. And I think that there is a potential for that to happen very rapidly. That said, though, I think it's best to not plan for the phase transition, because if you're anticipating the phase transition constantly, like you're going God candle, God candle, God candle, God candle, you're probably going to burn yourself out for most people, because we don't know where it is or when it happens or how it occurs, and we'll only know in retrospect. And so if you're constantly anticipating it, you could be off by 100 years. Like we don't know how far you could possibly be off, but it could be a lot.
Yeah. I mean, talking about maybe sort of being off or where things could go, do you think the block size wars are over?
That's an interesting question. I think the first thing, Cedric, that you have to understand is that the block size war was never about the blocks. That's number one. So the energy behind the block size war is still prevalent within Bitcoin. And go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
What were they about?
Yeah, I mean, it was about that's a good question. I have my own theory on this, but everybody will give you a different answer. But I think basically it was about, if you want to give a good faith interpretation of it, to me, it was this chicken egg problem of what comes first, a store of value or medium of exchange, which is an honest, good faith question when you're bootstrapping a global reserve currency, because none of us have ever seen a global reserve currency be bootstrapped not by fiat, right? And so I don't think we actually know the answer of store of value or medium of exchange. I think we came to the conclusion during the block size war that store of value precedes medium of exchange, and that medium of exchange in the information age is actually not as useful. And so you're putting the cart before the horse when you try and do medium of exchange before store of value. But then a lot of people would just say the block size war was just about control, right? And just who has the ability to make rules in Bitcoin. And probably to some degree, every elite disagreement, every elite quarrel is about rulemaking and who has the ability to control rulemaking, right? And so the block size became a flashpoint for these different camps within Bitcoin. And there were good and principled reasons to not raise the block size. But we actually did come out of the block size war with a compromise and a raise in block space via SegWit, right? Now, taking that energy forward into like, what could the future look like? Will there be a block size war part 2? I think the answer is definitely. And I think Bitcoin will have many of these skirmishes over the course of its life until it's completely ossified. And it's not ossified yet. So that leaves the potential for change. And the potential for change creates a friction. And, Bitcoin has this culture of civil engineering where it's like we're very reticent to change. The bar for change is very high. And the more expensive Bitcoin gets, the more value is stored on chain, the higher that bar goes. So if somebody wants to come in and they want to make a change very hastily, the answer is always no. But there are ideas out there that have been percolating for longer than Bitcoin has existed, that people would like to see enter Bitcoin. And I think that probably it'll be ideological in nature or scope. It's hard to predict ahead of time, but like something about, privacy versus number go up, something like that. That sounds right. So like full cypherpunk ethos versus a Bitcoin that is more socially acceptable, acceptable to regulators, that causes a higher investment of capital. And you could see the two sides duke it out over that. And I don't know what the flashpoint there will be, but that would be the ethos, I think, on both sides of the war.
Yeah, I kind of see a lot of what you're saying. I really do think it comes down to, it has to win as store of value first, but if it gives up everything that makes it succeed or will succeed as a MOE, then it won't survive either. Then it has to survive after as a method of exchange or medium of exchange. And I do think it comes down to sort of self-custody / privacy versus maybe number go up like numbing, like the way a mosquito numbs you to bite you. Number go up is not bad, But if how we get there, we give up those things in perpetuity, I think is really bad. And
Yeah, there's different thoughts here, right? So like one path is you give up a little bit of censorship resistance to gain a lot of institutional buy-in, and the institutional buy-in erodes the sense, the ethos and the cypherpunk properties of Bitcoin, and then you never get back to a state of free wild Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin is totally controlled and commodified. Ghettoized is the word. You get ghettoized as a store of value. That's similar to what they did to gold, but gold was easier to control. You can centralize gold and put it in a vault, and nobody can teleport the gold out of the vault, but you can teleport the Bitcoin out via hard fork, right? So like you can, there's more optionality on the table with Bitcoin in terms of what can be done to counteract co-option. Now, the other idea is that you give up a little bit of censorship resistance, or you make peace with institutions in terms of buy-in, and the censorship resistant qualities lay dormant for a while. Then Bitcoiners gain political and economic power, and they unleash them, and that's more of like the Trojan horse philosophy. I don't know which philosophy is better, more likely. I don't know. I think in all these Bitcoin conflicts, I think a big dose of humility is needed, because it's really hard to see the future, and you kind of have to play it as it lies. So for me, I'm like not choosing any sides at the moment. I just want to stay nimble and watch things as they evolve. Because like in the block size war, for instance, we thought that the big blockers were operating in good faith until we found out about ASIC boost. And then we basically realized that they had been operating in bad faith the whole time. And I had gone from this very like sort of pluralist, libertarian, free market dynamism philosophy of like, let's just let the market choose the block size, man, and like, whatever, to being like, no, these guys are operating in bad faith. Like I'm now fully aligned with the small blockers. And I think that as we go through the next war in Bitcoin, whatever it is, it behooves you to stay nimble and keep your eye on everybody. You don't have to join a side the minute the war kicks off.
yeah, I joined or became aware of Bitcoin and started studying in the fallout of that war, and it was very confusing. That was illuminating. I appreciate that. Two more questions here to round it out. One, I got to ask you about this on Bitcoin Center, which we're resuming production on soon. Ross Ulbricht out of prison. Thoughts there? I mean, for me, everything, I asked Jeff Booth, and the show's coming out soon, but like, what's going on in the economy? And he's like, I talked to you 2 years and 4 years ago, and nothing has changed, right? I mean, it's just the same. The dollar is deteriorating. We can get into that. But Ross, for me, getting out, I don't like really national politics. I don't like that DC is involved in our local lives. I think the government has too much power and all that stuff. But seeing people vote for Ross and Ross actually getting out, and what Ross, to me, in jail, I always had hope, and I knew we'd get him out in a way. But in jail, he was dead man. Like we didn't know if we can get him out, and I think what he represents on a meta level to the government is just an incredible amount of freedom for humanity, that they let him out of the box, what he represented to them and the political persecution. So I think we were both there in Miami for his talk, but what does it mean for you to seeing Ross get out?
I think I'm glad that Ross is out. I think his sentence was unfair. I've never been one of these people who's like, he did nothing wrong. It was just a website. I was like, I mean, he literally did run an illegal drug website. Like, he probably deserved some time for that. But what they gave him, that sentence was cruel and unusual and did not fit the crime, right? So it was that part was total bullshit. The sentencing was bullshit. And I wanted to see him freed. But I think, to me, the big thing about Ross is that it shows that Bitcoiners are politically ascendant. If we can free a man from double life imprisonment, if we can help get a president elected, what can't we do? People are like, we were a factor in this election. Like, guess what? we're going to be a factor in every election because we are ascendant. We're not just going to go away. And, if you're antagonizing us like the Democrats did for no reason, then you're going to face the consequences of that at the ballot box. And that's what happened. And Ross is a canary in the coal mine for the ascendancy of this new class of sort of sovereign, individual, freedom-minded, libertarian Bitcoin person, and that's a new type of person on the world stage. And I think if you're in politics, you should start to understand what people like us believe. You should start to court us as capital for your campaigns. You should start to engage with the technology. You should start to take it seriously. And you're going to have powerful, if you make allies in this community, I think you'll have powerful allies going forward over the years. Because the state condemned a man to death, and we said no, and we won. That's powerful.
That is powerful. On the human consciousness level, I mean, it was so. I felt lifted, I guess, in my being when he got out of jail. I don't know this guy, and like you said, I mean, it's a little gray area. I don't think he deserved the sentence he had. I think he was being politically persecuted, but did he break some obvious laws or laws, maybe not natural laws,
They're not laws we agree with, but they are laws
Sure.
on the books, right?
Yeah, and I also wonder when he lost control of the site and how much was.
Oh, there was a lot. I mean,
not
the
as doing.
agents.
Yeah,
on
there's
the
a lot
case,
there. Yeah,
there was a lot.
they went
there.
to jail, and Schumer hired the judge and all that.
The
But
very corrupt prosecution the whole time.
yeah, I should say appointed the judge. I'll round out with a couple of things that I've heard you say that have inspired me. One of them's a little, but I'm a married man, but I'm going to share it because I think it really speaks to responsibility. But the first one is, and I've stolen some of this. So, I tweeted, I still can't believe Wall Street convinced the majority of Americans to invest their life savings in a vehicle called the Standard & Poor's 500. Think it would making them anything but Standard & Poor. I mean, people, they call it the S&P 500. It's not getting you ahead. And you went on a rant the other day, and I loved it. You have a 401k. You said, I think a lot. I think everyone's struggling. I think fiat is ripping society apart. I don't belittle anyone's struggles, my own struggles, your struggles. It's all at any level, whatever is going on. Sucks going through this volatility. I think Bitcoin's price, it reflects real volatility that has actually been suppressed in the world that existed the whole time, but it sucks. But you can go around some nice neighborhoods and some even not so nice neighborhoods, and people have houses. They have 401ks, 80 grand and 100 grand, 109 grand. They have $90,000 Cadillac Escalades, speedboats, and some people, maybe less, but like, you should have one Bitcoin if you have those fucking things. And all those things usually are built on debt, though. So maybe they don't have those things, right? But you're flashing the Escalade, you're DCAing, and you're flashing the house. And then something else you said. So it's funny though, but like, basically, women get to wait at the finish line and fuck the winners. And but it speaks to how hard it is to be a winner in today's society. What I got from it, right? Like shit, like because I was married, kids. When I heard that, I'm not looking to, but like I'm still trying to get ahead. I'm still trying to survive, and be a winner for my wife and kids, right?
Well, this goes to a whole thing of like, it's very hard for. I think this is the reason why birth rates are down is because women are hypergamous, which means they date up and to the right. Which of course, I mean that. Like I have daughters, I would want them to marry guys that were winners that could provide a better life for them because they're going to have, it's a very compromising position to be a woman who's, going to be pregnant and then have offspring and then be responsible for the nurture and care of that child in a way that supersedes the nurture and care that the man is responsible for providing. And so, of course, it makes sense that as a woman, you want the best deal that you can possibly get, both in terms of, genetic material and also lifestyle, right? And so I think that one problem with birth rates here is that, the average man is not keeping pace with the average woman. in society today. And so, like, you know, men and women are going their separate ways because women are finding a dearth of, you know, suitable suitors or males to, you know, basically have kids with, right? And so it's like, as a man, what should you do in that circumstance? Well, you should not complain about female nature. You should try and level up and, you know, climb your way up the male hierarchy as a guy. Bitcoin is a part of that, and it can help you. And then, you know, as a woman, what should you do about that? Well, you should probably get Bitcoin too, because there's a lot of guys that are losers that aren't going to be able to take care of you, right? So it's like on both sides of the equation, you know.
Yeah, both parties should try to be the winner for each other.
Yeah, I think that both female nature and male nature is particularly brutal if you scratch under the surface of it. You know, human nature is brutal. We're brutal as humans. Yeah.
What I got from my show It's Safe, though, is like you got to try to be the person that would attract the kind of person you want to be with instead of just looking for that person. And I think that goes both ways. And I think it speaks to that. It's just trying to be the best person you can. And everyone, yeah. I'll leave it to you. This has been incredibly dope, as always, HODL. I'll leave it to you for any parting words. I hope you come back for our fourth turning panel, pulling together Dave Collum and Brandon Quittem and maybe Larry Lepard. We'll see. You know, let me know. I'll shoot you the details, but I'll leave it to you for any parting words and let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I would just say, like, I would say check out Nostr, man. I just love Nostr lately. I've just been fucking vibing with Nostr, and like I'm on there a lot, and I like Nostr better than Twitter. And so if you're wanting to hear my real thoughts, I share them more often on Nostr than I do on Twitter, because Twitter is such a fucking cesspool that, like, I don't even want to engage over there anymore, you know. I like going over there every once in a while and just like putting a few things out, but like Nostr feels like a cool place to hang out that's full of all the people that we like. And so, and it's gotten super easy to use. Like I always recommend the Primal wallet, which disclosure, I'm a small investor in, but it's just a really easy to use experience for Nostr. And yeah, check it out.
I don't, you know, it's another platform for me. I love Nostr. I love the idea of it. It kind of reminds me of Bitcoin in the early days when I was like, oh, wow, I don't invest in currency or save in different currencies. I'm really glad they have this currency to buy things they want to buy with the currency. You know, I'm like, I don't get the conversation on Nostr yet, because it feels to me like when I first got to Twitter, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Who do I talk to? What are they talking about? I assume no one's talking about Bitcoin in a way, because it's like even more of an echo chamber, I would think.
No, that's all we talk about, because that's our favorite topic, you know.
And what do you guys talk about Bitcoin? Like, is it like philosophical? Is it like just like number go up? Like, how's it different than Twitter then?
So it's not different in terms of, like, if you're just interested in learning about the day's news, then Twitter is fine. You can continue to just use Twitter. If you're interested in, like, sort of the future of, you know, decentralized social media, and you're interested in the way, like, you know, like Primal is a social wallet, so it has you know, it has a Lightning wallet built into it at core, and there are these really interesting things that people are starting to do with zapping each other value back and forth. And so I don't know, it's a really interesting space. It piques my intellectual curiosity. There's new things happening there every day. It's full of all my favorite people talking about all my favorite
But is it like,
things.
this is what I ate for breakfast when I first got on Twitter, like, and Facebook? Is it like, yeah, that's what I'm like, what am I doing here?
It's more chill vibes than it is on Twitter, you know. It's not like Twitter is like, fuck you, you're a communist, right. And the other one's, fuck you, you're a fascist, you know. And Nostr is just like, hey, what's up, friends? I like Bitcoin. And everybody's like, that's cool, me too.
Like the real social media, I guess.
It's like the way social media.
Yeah, I see that. Right.
Before it got gamified, you know.
Awesome.
So yeah, use Nostr. I don't fucking care. It's your life. Do whatever you
want.
Well,
I think it's amazing technology. I just don't know if I'm getting any more signal there yet. I'm waiting for it to kind of like.
You got to be the same.
Not that it's not.
You're the
yeah,
same.
that's what, I don't know how to talk on Nostr yet. You have to talk different things. You have to say different things.
You just engage. You just engage with everybody.
All right, I'll try. I'm gonna find you and try.
Yeah, do it. I'll pump your posts.
All right, you do that. I appreciate that. This has been so dope, HODL, as always. All right, bro. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Bitcoin Matrix. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with any questions or thoughts you may have. We'd love to hear from you. You can support the show by checking out our sponsors and affiliate links in the description. It helps keep bringing you great content while connecting you with awesome products that I believe in. Share this episodes with your friends, family, or anyone curious about Bitcoin. And let's keep growing this community together. Stay curious, keep stacking, and I'll catch you in the next one.